Email, in my humble opinion, is still the greatest marketing channel of all time. It's the only way you can truly own your audience today. But when it comes to building those emails, well, if you've ever tried building an email in an enterprise marketing automation platform, you know just how painful that can be. I won't name names, but templates get too rigid, editing code can break things, and the whole process just takes forever when it shouldn't. That's why we love Knack here at Exit 5. Knack is a no-code email platform that makes it easy to create on-brand, high-performing emails without the bottlenecks. If you're frustrated by clunky email builders, you need Knack. If you're tired of hoping the email you sent looks good across all devices, just test it in Knack first. And if you're a big team that's making it hard to collaborate and get approvals on your email, you definitely need Knack. And the best part, everything takes a fraction of the time. You can see Knack in action at knack.com/exit-5. That's knak.com/exit-5. Or just let them know you heard about Knack from Exit 5. That's us. You're listening to B2B Marketing with me, Dave Gerhardt. Exit. All right, we're back with another episode of the podcast. My guest on this episode is my friend Udi Ledergor. He's currently the chief evangelist at Gong and former CMO. On his journey from marketer number one at Gong to CMO, he led the creation of the revenue intelligence category, pioneered an iconic human-centric brand, and led Gong's marketing efforts from zero to hundreds of millions in revenue. On this episode, we talk about some of his lessons, learnings, and favorite campaigns from the Gong days. Plus, we take a dive into his new book, Courageous Marketing, and talk about why B2B doesn't have to be boring. Amen. And how to sell that concept to your boss. Here's my conversation with Udi.
Let's talk about my book. Oh, let me get a copy so I can hold it up like a cheesy
This guy, he sent me a calendar invite to promote his book on LinkedIn, but he comes on the podcast and says, "Do you know what we're talking about today?"
Well, I meant more specifically, like, look, I don't know if you've skimmed through the book, but there's like 12 chapters with lots of stories and topics.
Yeah,
So
no, we're good. I do this for a living. We're going to just jump around.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So first of all, just fill people in with your backstory and history. I think most people will know you from Gong, but can you just kind of recap your run at Gong, and then also like talk about what stage and size and everything Gong is at now, just as context?
All right. Well, thanks for having me back, Dave. I'm excited to be here.
Change nothing. You can't tell somebody. I do so many interviews with people, and then once I start here recording, they literally become a different person. And I'm like, no, I want you from the green room.
There's only
Not
one
you.
version of me. Sorry to disappoint. There's only one version of me. Whether it's on stage, in bed, in the kitchen. It's
That's right. I feel the same way. All right.
Well, yes, I genuinely thank you for having me back. I'm excited to be talking, and thank you for chatting and helping me clarify some ideas as I was writing this book. So to answer your question, I grew up in the Tel Aviv area in Israel, far, far away from San Francisco, where I am these days. And like most people, I went into the army at age 18, and I stayed there for 4 years, regular army, and then like 20 years of reserve duty, which is a whole other story. But then I grew up with a father working in tech. And I remember during summers, I used to go do like office work at his office. And I saw him sitting there typing away code and emails and meeting. I'm like, that seems like the most boring job in the world. I'm never going to be in tech. And here I am at age 50 after 25 years in tech. So that didn't age very well. But my father did. He's in great health and he's doing well, just recently retired.
Hold on. So you put in 20 years in the reserves?
Yes, which means in Israel, because I know it means different things in different countries. In Israel, it means that they can call you in for a few weeks a year. During peacetime, it's a few weeks a year. During wartime, like now, some of my friends have been doing like 250 days of army service a year.
That's crazy.
While trying to run a family and a business.
Not to get super deep on you in this in this podcast, but I'm sure you've reflected on what your life could have been and where you've come from. You know, now you're in the US, right? But like, especially over the last 2 years, right? I mean, that was your life for 20 years, right?
Yes. The situation in Israel, which I'm assuming you're alluding to, is heartbreaking. I've got my parents and my in-laws and my siblings and my nibblings. They're all there. And they're thankfully safe, but absolutely exhausted. And I feel terrible for them every day. And I'm very grateful that I get to live in San Francisco where things are generally more hospitable. So
is that something that like, do you think about that often? Like, does it drive you in the world of like, I'll post something on LinkedIn about like SEO is dead and someone's like, screw this guy, classic thought leader, white male, hate this. Like it's always a solo consultant guy that always wants to come in and dunk on me. And I
yeah.
tell these things to my wife and she's like, do these people not know like there's real things happening in the world? Like like, are people really so mad about your opinions on B2B marketing?
Yes, that happens to me literally 3 times a week when, one of my kids will get worked up because I don't know, I didn't make the mac and cheese shape that they like. And then my husband and I look at each other and we're remembering that our parents right now are in a bomb shelter in Israel because there's missile alarms going over their heads. I'm like, everything's okay. Everything is fine. Just it gives you perspective. And jokes aside, I think growing up in Israel gave me one of the qualities that is so important in business and in marketing, which is being adaptable. You've got to roll with the punches, and there's going to be so much shit thrown at you if you're living in Israel. Not to diminish anyone else's shit growing up elsewhere,
Yeah.
but I think my experience in Israel is there's so much shit thrown at you. There's a violence round every couple of years on average. None of them as terrible as the current one, but there were some pretty bad ones before that. And you just got to get up and go to work. Like, I'm texting my sister and brother and asking them like, how are you doing? Are you okay? I have no idea how you're coping with everything going on at home, not getting sleep because you could get missile alarms 3 times in the middle of the night and have to move to the bomb shelter. But then you have to get up and go to work in the morning. One of my sister-in-laws is a special ed school teacher and my other sister is a lawyer. And like, how do you do it? And they just respond, well, what choice do we have? That's just our life. And you've got to admire that. And people there are going through crazy shit. But again, back to our topic, I think it teaches you to become adaptable. And what we've all seen during COVID and during the economic downturn is that it's not necessarily the ones with the most money in the bank that survive. It's not necessarily the smartest one that survive. It's the most adaptable ones that survive.
All right. So people know you from Gong, but recap can you just recap your tenure?
Yes. Real quick, I started out in product management. I took 2 roles in product management, which I thought was fascinating, being on the fence between what customers want and are looking for, and then what our engineering and product teams put out there, and being that bridge to simplify very complicated technology into very simple benefits for users. I loved doing that. And then taking their requests and putting it in a language that the engineers knew how to go build the product that the customers wanted. So I did that for quite a few years, probably 7 years or so. And then I realized that I liked the customer facing part better than working with the engineers. There's only so many product requirement documents I can build with showing them where the buttons need to go, what they need to do. So I decided to pursue a career in marketing. And this was during a time where I was at a company that we eventually took public. And I was doing both product and marketing at the same time. And I just came to my CEO and I said, Zev, I think the company would benefit from having a full-time marketing person. We get more brand awareness, we get more pipeline. And he said, yeah, I agree. And I said, and I've got just a guy for you. Let me step into that role. I'd been at the company for like 5 years as a product manager then. I said, I'll hire and train someone to replace me as product manager. I'll keep doing that job until we have someone in seat. And then I'll step into a full-time marketing job. And he said, yeah, I agree. So that's how I created my first VP marketing role. And fun story, the hire that I made for replacing me as product manager eventually worked his way up to replace the CEO when he retired. So that was a good hire.
Pretty good. I had something like that. I hired somebody that ended up being the CEO. And you know how they say like hire people that are smarter than you? This was
To the extreme.
truly the first person that I hired. And like 2 weeks in the job, I was like, this guy would come to me and ask me questions. I'm like, yes, absolutely. Yes, just do that.
Sounds like it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it worked out great.
And from there, I just kept going from one company to another, 5 of them to be complete. I did 5 marketing leadership roles. Some of them grew into decent sized teams, like a company called Panaya that we eventually sold to Infosys, this Indian IT giant, for a few hundreds of millions. Remember back when a few hundreds of millions sounded like a big exit? So that was about 10 years ago. And then I did a bit of consulting when my twins were born because I just couldn't bear the thought of 10 Zoom meetings a day. And then Amit Bendov, whom I had the pleasure of working with twice, once at Panaya and once at Click Software, we kept in touch and we got together for coffee while I was doing consulting. And he shared this crazy idea about software that would record sales conversations and extract all the insights of what's happening and what customers want and what they like and what they dislike. And I said, yeah, I can see the value of that, but is the technology even there? And he said, well, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And then he called me 6 months later and he said, Udi, remember the crazy idea I told you about? Well, we built the product. I found a technical co-founder, Elon. We built the product. We rolled it out to 12 customers. And within 3 months, 11 of them turned into paying customers because they loved the product so much they didn't want us to shut it off. They wrote us a check. And he said, I think we have early product market fit and we should start marketing this. Can you come help? And I said, yes, I can come help. And then I dropped everything else I was doing. And that's how I joined Gong. So this is my third time working with Amit Bendov as my leader and fearless CEO.
Yeah, but career hack. If you know a CEO that is an amazing product visionary, go work with them.
Just follow them. Like wherever he'll go, I will follow him. Yes. That's a big career hack. I think some people underestimate, there's the old cliche, which is true, that people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. And that's often the truth.
How do you, one thing when I mention that, like sometimes people are like, oh yeah, must be nice. Like for you can do that, right? What advice would you give to someone maybe early? Like how can we extrapolate that a little bit and say like, okay, if you're early in your career and you don't have a CEO that you can go follow, in a world of like trying to pick the right company, it might not always be the right product at the right time. We've all had companies, I'm looking at your LinkedIn just like mine where, you got a bunch of successes, but there's also, you were at a company for 8 months and that clearly was not the right spot for you at that time. And so you left and I've done that too, right? But for the up and coming marketers, what is it to look for outside of they can pay me this much money and here's the job description? I think there's a lesson in like picking the right company if you can.
There is. So here's what I learned, and I'll take that apart into 2 questions, which I think are somewhat separate: how to pick the right company and how to pick the right boss. So it starts with first self-reflecting and understanding, even if you're early in your career, like being honest with yourself, how much chaos can I withstand? How much lack of structure and process am I comfortable with? If you ask some people, they're like, oh, I need an employee handbook. I want to know what the HR benefits are. I need to know like when they expect me to clock in and clock out. Then maybe startup environment is not for you, man. Just be honest with yourself about that. And so that's one thing. Now, looking at the company, and I talk about this in my book, I think one of the main reasons that marketing and marketers fail is not even their fault, except for not checking this in advance, which is lack of product market fit. Now, most marketers, and I think I've seen you write about this as well, Dave, I, for one, know how to take product that has even early product market fit, which means we understand what value it provides to which user, and now go scale that. Bring more of those users so we can get in front of them and sell them and make them raving fans. I know how to scale that. That's called demand generation and building a brand. I don't know how to take a vague idea that some founder or engineer fell in love with. They don't have a single raving fan, and now they want me to scale that. I don't know how to do that. And I've been at companies like those that show up at 8 or 10 months in my tenure where I tried doing that and it just didn't work. So I was labeled as a failure because I didn't scale this vague idea. But guess what? The company didn't figure it out or took them many, many years to figure it out before they can do any effective marketing.
Well, I think what's interesting on that also is that vague idea. It's like with any of these companies, right? There's often so many directions that you can go in. And I do think there are multiple paths to be successful, but it's like the value, good things happen when you can be clear, when the CEO and founder and whoever can be clear about like the vision and the one lane you're going after, right? Like I can think of a founder that I know right now in the early stages of something, and it's like, well, we can do this, and we can also do this, and we can. That's a nightmare for a marketer because it's like the website is never good enough, it's never clear enough, the story is never good enough. Every week they want to come back and rework the sales deck. Like, was there something with the guys at Gong in the early days where it was like it was always going to be for sales calls? It was never like 100%. Some esoteric platform that was going to be impossible to articulate. Like it seemed like you guys were clear from the beginning.
Yes, absolutely. I think Gong is one of those rare companies that, and Amit occasionally shares some of his 2015 slides that he used to raise a seed round. We are still on that roadmap. We have not diverted left or right from the 2015 roadmap. And the company's doing pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, dude, look, as somebody who, there was one point where like Drift and Gong were on the same trajectory. And then now like it breaks my soul. People are like, I'll talk about a marketing play that I did at Drift, and then in the Exit 5 community, someone's like, "Can you go find a link to that?" And they literally killed the website. It's
Oh,
gone. It's all gone.
great.
It's all gone. But
Um,
what I love about the Gong story is like it is your mother, your cousin, whoever, no matter what industry you're in, you can explain what it does. And that is always going to
yes.
pass the sniff test for me. Gong has never been positioned as the all-in-one, platform to do X, Y, and Z. It's very simple and easy to explain. And I have been jealous of that for for sure.
And you should be, Dave. You won't see me marketing cybersecurity or something that I can't explain to my mother or my
Sure.
children. I can't. I want to understand. So I chose Gong for three reasons. One was the leadership, because I'd already worked with Amit twice before, and I knew that he's a seasoned, experienced founder that knows what good and great looks like, and he also knows quite a bunch of mistakes to avoid. And that's something I didn't find in first-time founders that I worked with twice, and that did not work out. So I don't think that's a coincidence. I'm not saying don't go work with any first-time founder, but you've got to understand, do they have the maturity and do they have some of the experience to make fewer of the mistakes and more of the right decision? That's hard. Second thing is the product, right? We had those 11 beta customers that had turned into paid customers. They were raving fans from day one. When I arrived in the company, within a month, we had 12 testimonials on the website from those first 11 customers, because they were raving fans and they went on video. We shot them with an iPhone and they were just telling how excited they were to record the calls and be able to search for their competitors and use it for coaching. And you don't usually see that in really early stage companies. So the sniff test definitely passed. This is a product people are going to get excited about. And the third thing, which you just talked about, is the buyer persona. I love marketing to sales and marketing personas, to go to marketing personas, because they're not too technical. They care about the business results. And so they have the budget, because if they're convinced that you can help them achieve better business results, they will find the money. Good luck doing that with selling to HR or finance or IT. Those are often seen as cost centers, which are much harder to sell to. Possible, of course, but much harder. And then the products usually become so messy to explain.
All right. So long story short, Udi was VP of marketing at Gong, CMO at Gong, and then a couple of years ago moved into this chief evangelist role. Company's been wildly successful, done hundreds of millions in revenue. But now I think Udi did something cool, which is wrote a book called Courageous Marketing that will be out when we put this podcast out. He's got it right there. He's got his red sweater on today.
I'm on brand today.
I love the book. I love the title. There's a very handsome, well-known bald thought leader featured multiple times in the book, which I'm sure is just going to blow your mind. But I thought it'd be fun. I thought it'd be fun to dig into, people. Here's how, let's spend this time together. So people love specific examples of great marketing plays. And so let's dig into some of the, you said this in the beginning, taking the boring out of B2B marketing. That's kind of the goal for your book. We can talk about Gong. We can talk about anything that you want in the book, but let's talk about some of the most memorable plays under this vein of courageous marketing. First, why does marketing need to be courageous? Why did you frame the book in that lens as opposed to like the B2B marketing playbook, the playbook?
Yeah, because I think it's the solution to some of the biggest problems of why marketing doesn't get off the ground. And I explored this in the beginning of the book. I talked to you and half a dozen other exceptional CMOs and asked them about their failure stories and what they've seen works and doesn't work. And I found that many, many times, the reason we marketers fail is because we kind of gravitate to a consensus and to something mediocre. I just call it playing safe is the riskiest strategy of all, because you don't get into trouble immediately for playing it safe, right? It's just like the IT person of the 1980s who didn't get in trouble because they bought an IBM, right? There's the whole saying, nobody got fired for buying IBM. You don't get fired immediately for doing what everyone else is doing in marketing because it seems safe and agreeable. The problem with that is that you will never cut through the noise. You will never create something unique and differentiated by doing what everyone else is doing. You remember this when you launched the Drift website and I launched the Gong website. Everyone was doing blue and white and gray. That was kind of the only approved color scheme for B2B websites. So as soon as we saw that, I went for fuchsia pink and purple because I wanted to stand out. Now, I would have found it very easy to get consensus on blues and whites because it looked very professional and looked like what everyone else was doing. But that would have been the most boring website that nobody would have given the time of day to. Yeah. So I slapped a drooling bulldog. I went with bubblegum pink and purple. Now people were talking about it.
Yeah.
And that is why I think finding your courage in everything you do, in brand building, in content, in tone of voice, in your event experiences, in your category building, and fighting against the consensus and fighting against the conservatives. That is how you're going to stand out and create really exceptional marketing that moves the needle.
Udi, I just wish I could come give you a hug right now, man.
I want a hug, Dave. I'm a hugger.
Because like, I just think we spend so much time arguing about nonsense in marketing, or not even arguing. It's just like the things that really matter. It's not that little nurture email. It's not that website optimization. It's not like ABM is dead. It's not SEO is dead. Is this? And you did this at Gong. I'm sure Amit had a lot of, influence on saying that. You need the permission from the founder at the company to do that. Like when I was at Drift, what was really wise about David, who's the founder and CEO, was like, look, he had awareness of the market. It's even crazier now with AI, but this was, 2015, 2016, Scott Brinker's MarTech landscape. There was 15,000 tools. Nobody needs another sales tool. Nobody needs another MarTech tool. And so he's like, if we're going to go build this brand, we want to get attention. We want to do it in a way that is going to stand out. And I just think this is it's so obvious, but it is an underrated ingredient. Why go through the effort of starting a company, raising all this money, doing all this stuff, and then damn it, your website looks like Stripe? Like, why would we do that versus spend the calories to like make a brand that stands out? And I think we're in a world where we're chasing so many little tweaks and optimizations that the obvious answer is honestly to just take a bigger swing. And I think seeing the Gong Bulldog, seeing the Gong Purple, the whole, visual identity that you all went and did, and you made that investment at a relatively early time in the company to completely change and level up that identity, right?
I think I understand why that happens though, Dave. Think about it. The typical company, I mean, I know you advise a bunch of companies and so do I. We've all seen this happen. You get a CEO who typically does not come with marketing experience, right? Most CEOs were not marketers. I've been very lucky to work for a CEO, I didn't mention this earlier, who used to be a CMO, right? I mean,
no, but they do think they know everything about marketing.
Right. So that's how it starts. Now, here's where it really gets nasty, because they hire someone not to be provocative and a thought leader because they're a startup. So like you and I probably wouldn't go work for them right now. So they end up hiring someone who maybe managed social media at some medium-sized company, and they don't feel they have the authority or the permission to go do something crazy. So you've got a CEO who doesn't know marketing. You've got a kind of mid-level, early-stage marketer that didn't really do anything radical. And that's a deadly combination if you're going to build some exceptional marketing. It's a deadly combination.
All right. So number one would be like this visual identity that you gave to Gong.
Yes. What do you want to know, Dave?
What else? I think it's good.
I can talk about like how the visual identity was kind of the lipstick at the end of the process of defining our brand personality, because I think that's a step that lots of marketers skip. And it's a shame because then you get this incongruent tone of voice with their look and feel. And,
sure,
someone is putting out very stuffy content, but then we're like, oh, we're cool and friendly.
Yeah. So you made a conscious effort to say, this is our brand personality and here's what that means. Tell me about that.
Yes, we went through a process pretty early on, way before the visual identity process, to understand who we are as a brand, because some people think that choosing your font is something random. It's not. They're fonts that make you look serious. They're fonts that make you look playful. They're fonts that make you look scary. Just look at what movie producers use on their posters. They use very different fonts for Batman, for Nightmare on Elm Street, and for a rom-com, right? They're different fonts. They're different colors. There's different everything in the design. So you can't just choose that randomly. And it has to come from a deeper place of who are you? What is your personality as a brand? So we went through that process. I'll cut the long story short. And we identified a few qualities that were very important to us. Amongst them, we said we are mature in the sense that we're authoritative and we understand our space, but we're going to marry that with playful and friendly, whereas many brands think that mature has to come with kind of old and conservative and stuffy. And that's how you end up sounding like a bank. Like, we didn't want to be that. So we wanted to be an authority, but that helpful friend that you can go up to at a cocktail party and ask a question and they're going to have a great story. And I think that's the vibe that we're giving off to this day with Gong Labs content, with Bruno the Bulldog, and with our visual identity and the tongue-in-cheek tone of voice. That was all intentional, all came back from that brand personality exercise.
All right, it's that time of year. Everybody's scrambling to wrap it up
justify budgets, get those plans in last minute, and quietly hope that the numbers are going to hold going into 2026. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most marketing teams still don't actually know what's driving real results and what's just taking credit. There's a difference. And you can't make smart calls for next year if you're just guessing about what's working, what's not, and where to put your next dollar. Paramark has built something to fix that. It's their free incrementality calculator, and it takes 2 minutes, and it's going to give you a simple reality check on one question. If you stopped a campaign, would the results still happen anyway? I can think of a few ideas in my head right now that I would like to run this through. Maybe branded search would be one of them. Anyway, that's incrementality, and it's how the best marketers are cutting waste, tightening budgets, and figuring out which programs actually deserve to make it into next year. You'll get a quick read on whether you're ready for incrementality testing and how much money you could be saving right now. So go and check it out. Completely free tool from Paramark. It's paramark.com/calculator. That's paramark.com/calculator.
So that's a big one, setting the direction for the brand, and that gives everybody the playbook to run off of. People that listen to this podcast love hearing about specific campaigns and plays that you've run. I know there's a couple that you talk about in the book that you're proud of, so let's pick some to dive into.
Yeah, so one of the topics I talk about in the book, which I think you also happened to post about this morning on the day we're recording, is what I call punching above your weight, which is making your company appear to be a couple of years ahead of where it really is. And before I get into the examples, maybe we'll say why this is important, because most startups are in a pickle because they're trying to sell to large enterprises, but large enterprises don't like buying from startup. So you're screwed, right? You need to sell to enterprise because you're building enterprise software, but what right-minded enterprise is going to buy from a small startup that might not even be there next year? So you've got to overcome that. One, on the product side, you've got to create all that boring enterprise great security and privacy compliance, and nobody wants to talk about that, but you have to do that. But then on the marketing side, you can make your company appear to be much bigger and much farther ahead than it really is.
Well, this is there's just a perception lesson here, right? And it's like, whether you're buying a sandwich or pizza down the street, you want to walk into that restaurant or little sandwich shop and you want to feel like that place is dialed in, right? You want to feel like they have their shit together, whether they're brand new or not. And I believe in I love the comment that you made about punching above your weight, because I think you can do that I think a lot of companies will just partner with anyone and do co-marketing with anyone. And I think we used to be really intentional about who we'd want to do partnerships with and who do you want to be seen with.
Yes.
There's a whole perception element there. And there's a line from I saw this clip on Instagram one time, and I think is the comedian Jack Lemmon? Is that what his name is? Do you know?
So the Jack Lemmon I'm thinking about, that's a Hollywood actor that's been long dead.
He's an actor who's long dead. But I saw a clip. There's an old clip, and it was
he's great.
He's having dinner at this. He's friends with Frank Sinatra, and he's having dinner with this woman who he's trying to wine and dine and whatever. And he tells Frank Sinatra to come over and say hello because it would make him seem like he's a really big deal. And so Frank Sinatra walks over to the table, and Jack Lemmon's like, "Oh, would you get the hell out of here, Frank? Can't you see I'm having dinner?" And he just treats him like a piece of crap. And it just created this, this guy's so big, he can even tell Frank Sinatra off. And I was man, that is a great marketing perception lesson.
Perception is reality in our world.
So I don't know if this was one of the examples that we talked about in the book, but this is what I was referencing on LinkedIn that I wrote about today. We wanted to get involved at SaaStr. And at the time, we had a hard time justifying the cost of, say, a booth, right? Mm-hmm. But we were like, let's just do something anyway. And so we found out that outside of the convention center where the event was, there was one billboard, and you could get basically that billboard a la carte. And it was $4,000 for 2 weeks or something to have that billboard, right? And then we could also wrap the train station for 10 days. And that was maybe $8,000. And this was in the world of social media. I knew that if everybody, what would people do when they saw that? They would take pictures of it. And even if they didn't see it, you better believe I was going to go out there and take a picture of myself in front of it. And so I love stuff like that. And so to me, when we think about what is courageous marketing, it's very easy to be well, how did you measure that, Dave? So
let's give our listeners the formula to do that, because you've pulled it off many times. I've pulled it off, and other marketers like Andrew Davis from Paddle pulled it off by sending a spaceship to outer space and recording custom ABM videos of his customer software running, which is wild. Go look at that. And so here's the formula, folks. What you do is you look for a medium that's usually associated with a very large advertiser. It can be a billboard, it can be a TV ad, it can be wrapping cars, something big, it can be a full page ad in the Wall Street Journal. Step two, you look for the smallest version that you could possibly buy of that thing. So in the Wall Street Journal, there's a regional edition that doesn't say that it's a regional edition at the top of the page. So when you take a photo of that, it still says Wall Street Journal at the top, but it costs like a quarter of the national ad. If you follow Dave's advice, you buy a cheap billboard in a strategic space. I've done this multiple times, spending $500 buying a Times Square billboard that lights up for like 2 minutes of the day. And during those 2 minutes, I made sure there was a photographer and a videographer there, which cost me another $300. So they could capture that with all the hustle and bustle of Times Square. So that's the next part. You get creative with how you use the medium. I've used Times Square billboards for everything from a product launch to acknowledging our outstanding Gongsters, which is our version of Employee of the Year. So you do that. I know you took one in some dodgy alley in San Francisco. I saw one of your little billboards. It was a tweet of one of your customers, right? I remember that. So you get creative with how you use that.
Dodgy to who? Maybe dodgy to you, myself. I'm numb to get after it. I don't care.
I remember exactly where it is, between 5th and 6th on Mission, because I used to get coffee there. I know exactly where it is.
We're lucky that when we took that picture, there wasn't like a man pulling down his pants and taking a poop on the side of the sidewalk. Like
that kind of dodgy for those who haven't been in San Francisco. So you get creative with the medium, then you take great photos and videos of them. And here's the crucial step. Now you amplify the hell out of it on all of your owned digital mediums, like your social media, your emails, your speaking opportunities, wherever you can get it out there, because now you're talking to your captive audience. I don't care about the random tourists on the way to Phantom of the Opera on Broadway looking at my billboard. I care about the 300,000 followers we have on LinkedIn seeing a screenshot of that billboard. And that is the point.
And they're going to be like, wow, this company, the company that I use is so legit. They have this huge billboard in Times Square.
Exactly.
It's not just a geo-target people in New York.
Exactly. And while we're on it, another reach hack is to get every single employee to share that on their social media. That costs $0 and gets you more reach than you could ever afford.
Well, Udi, they're proud to do it because if you have a company where the company's growing, things are going well, people are always like, how did you get everybody to share on LinkedIn? It was like, well, they were drinking the Kool-Aid at a crazy rate. It wasn't like we ran some campaign. It was like, work is a key part of everyone's identity. You go to a party, you meet someone, they say, what do you do for work? And so when people were so proud to work at Gong, they loved the company. They wanted to like show their mom and their cousin, look at, my company's got this big billboard in Times Square. So I love plays like this. Udi, when I talk about this though, the number one question people ask me is like, how do you measure that? Or why do it? Or what's the impact of that? Doesn't matter if it was $12,000 instead of, $120,000. You still need to you're not just lighting that money on fire. So How do you help folks answer that question?
So there's a pre-measurement tip that I have to insert here, which is how do you budget for that? And how do you make it easier so it's not a long argument with your CFO or CEO every time you identify an opportunity? And the answer to that, like with any good medicine, is preemptive medicine versus curing an illness. And how do I do that? Every year during budgeting season, I allocate 5 to 10% of my program budgets to what's now officially known as marketing experiments. The original internal marketing version just called it Udi's Crazy Ideas. But Russell was smart enough to tell me we should change that to marketing experiments before it goes to the CFO. So we changed Udi's Crazy Ideas budget line item to marketing experiments. And here's how I explain why we need a budget for marketing experiments. And every CFO and CEO will nod in agreement when they hear this. Number one, there's 2 reasons. Number one, there's going to be opportunities that present themselves in the next budget year that don't exist yet. Example might be a big industry event that gets announced in March and happens in September. I don't know about it this November in budgeting season. If I don't budget something for it, we're going to wish we did because we're going to want to be in that event, but we won't have a budget. Then we're going to have to be in a squeeze and find a budget. So that's number one, just marketing opportunities that present themselves throughout the year. Number two, any and all of the channels that we have working right now are going to tap out at some point. So we constantly need to be experimenting with new channels to see what the next big thing is, new technologies, new mediums that come up. Everyone remember Clubhouse that came out during COVID? Everyone thought that was going to be the next big thing, or now it's TikTok and Instagram and all these things. We have to be experimenting. So we need a budget for that so that when our current channels tap out, we have something else as a backup. So you explain that, and that's how you get your marketing experiments budget. Now you have an experiment to actually go play with. So we went and played with it. Now, how do we measure it? So first, we have to be comfortable. We've got to set expectations that not everything is going to show up neatly on your digital dashboard. This is not a LinkedIn ad. It's not a landing page with a clear conversion rate. When you do some of these brand campaigns, you're not going to get clear, measurable ROI on every single thing. But there are things you can do to estimate the impact that these are having and what I call soft ROI. You know what soft ROI is? On the billboards that we did to showcase outstanding gongsters, that came out of the marketing budget. I spent a few tens of thousands of dollars showcasing our outstanding gongsters. It was so good that we keep doing it now, 8 years later. We're still doing it every year. So here's what soft ROI looks like. First, the employees who get recognized, they all fly to the nearest billboard. They take a selfie, they send it to their mom, they post it on their social media, and they are gongsters for life. Those employees will not leave unless we really F up. So that's soft ROI number one. Two, all of their team members are cheering for them, sharing these photos and asking me privately, how do I get on a billboard next year? What do I need to do to be an outstanding gongsters? Because I want to show my mom my face on a billboard. That's number two. Number three, when candidates come into interviews, we hear them say, oh, we saw your employees on the billboards on the way into the office. What a beautiful way of recognizing and acknowledging your employees. So that's another piece of ROI. And then I'll give you another one. If you use revenue intelligence like Gong, you can actually ask Gong in which sales conversations were these campaigns mentioned. So I'll give you two quick examples. One, we sponsored the Michael Lewis podcast. Michael Lewis, best-selling author of Moneyball.
Yeah, Moneyball, The Big Short. Yeah.
So he was speaking at one of our events and he offered, hey, we should have your CEO come for an interview on my podcast. Now that sounds very generous until you see the price tag, which is a nice 5-figure number. So we decided to go for it, even though most of us would not, because you'd say, how would I ever measure the impact of that? So here's how I measured the impact of that. On the week that the episode with my CEO aired, I went into Gong and I typed in Michael Lewis podcast, and Gong showed me actually there are 40 calls, 20 in the first week, and then like 21 in the first week, and then like 14 and 7 in the next 2 weeks, that the lead on the call said to the salesperson, I heard your CEO on the Michael Lewis podcast, so I went to your website and asked for this demo. How cool is that? Now I can measure some of the impact. And I knew that even if those were the only 40 people who asked for the demo, it was totally worth, and I had great positive ROI. But I also know that there's probably 50 others who didn't mention it because we didn't ask them how they heard about us. And I did the same for our Super Bowl commercial. When our Super Bowl commercial went live, I used a bunch of ways to measure it. But one of them was looking into Gong, and I saw 455 calls that were talking about Super Bowl around our commercial. So even my CFO could not stay blind to that, especially when I coupled it with website traffic showing increased traffic, 30% higher that week, and much higher conversion. And at the end of the week, my CFO came to me to tell me, hey, Udi, do you know we just broke our weekly record for most pipeline ever created at Gong? And that was on Super Bowl week. So that's all the proof I needed.
Love it. All right. End of the podcast. There's enough ROI in that rant to go buy Udi's book. There's a couple things. First of all, Michael Lewis, you can go on his podcast, but you have to pay for it?
In this case, yes.
Whoa.
I'm sure he invites other guests for free, but this was a paid opportunity.
Okay, interesting.
I don't want to shame anyone, but this was a paid opportunity. All the big podcasts are doing this now. I'm sure you've heard, Dave.
No, I'm like, shit, we should start doing that. We should go send you the bill for this. My goodness.
I'll send you a book.
Oh, thank you. Please. That's great.
It's actually in the mail. You should be getting it like today or tomorrow.
I would check. I did see FedEx just come right now. So I love that you talked about the success in that is about the pre-framing, right? And it's like, I think if you go and do all that stuff, it makes perfect sense why. If you just go and do all that stuff, then everyone looks at it as like, well, how much pipeline did that generate? We didn't book any new meetings. But if you go up and you say, well, hold on, this is not going to eat away from our like budget that's used to drive pipeline.
Exactly.
This is an additive thing. So I love that. It's when you just are like, yeah, we spent $100,000 on billboards. And the CFO is like, well, how many meetings did we drive from that? We're like, well, the goal wasn't meetings. I also love the idea of the soft ROI. And I think there's just so much of marketing, like, yes, you can measure everything, but a lot of the marketing stuff like this is harder to measure, but it's more of a feel thing. And we have so many ways of measuring that today, though, that are just qualitative. Like, I would always have screenshots from LinkedIn in my board deck, because if an ICP customer writes this like amazing thing on LinkedIn, like, sure, does that translate directly into like, website visitors and traffic? No.
Your board members get it. 'Cause
They
they've been
get
around.
it. People are not dumb, right? Like we have to show people how marketing is done. And people are not dumb. They know that everything is not bought in a straight line, right? And
And
so
it's probably worth mentioning for folks listening who maybe haven't done this at scale. Once you're spending $2, $5, $10 million a year on media, then you can actually kick in some measurement tools. I think we both know a great company called Paramark who's doing something like this, where they're using marketing media mix to actually show the impact of those black boxes, saying, hey, on that quarter where you invested more in billboards and podcasts, you actually had more traffic on the website convert, because that's how brand impacts demand gen.
yes.
But you can't accurately measure that when you're spending $10,000. You need to be
Right.
spending a few millions for the statistical models to kick in. So we have the data
I
to
love that.
support this. We just need the scale to measure that more accurately.
I love that. And so once you get to that scale, yes, like absolutely, can HubSpot measure the impact of their like out of home campaigns?
Of course they do.
absolutely can, right? But I just think like for, when I say like, oh yeah, we spent 12 grand on this billboard, I do get a lot of questions. Well, how did you measure that? And I think hearing you say that, it's like the answer was not 12. The answer is 12. No, it was like, well, people took pictures of it and it made our employees feel amazing. And we did this thing outside of our customer's office and it's pictures. Like, let's bring that into the marketing. And then, yeah, maybe it can be a way to test into that. Also, you mentioned the thing that I got burned by probably my first time really running marketing. Biggest thing was like, you're under so much pressure to hit the number today. I did not do enough to hit the number for 2 years from now, 3 years from now. And it's very hard to do that. It's like you need to
Very hard.
brush your teeth and floss every day so you don't get a cavity. I am tired tonight. I'm not going to floss my teeth, right? Like,
It is hard because you're like, the cliche, we're building the plane while we're flying it.
but what you have to do, what you said though, which is when you budget, you have to intentionally put that money aside.
You know you're going to need it. You're always going to need it. Why not put it in the budget?
But then what you said is such a smart move is like the CFO and the rest of the company, they look at that budget differently. That is your experiments budget, right?
Yeah, which is true. Like these things are truly experiments. When we did the outstanding Gongster billboards, and it was such a hit with the employees that now we have a line item for outstanding Gongster billboards. That's a line item at Gong for years now because it was an experiment that Udi did and worked out really well. So those things do mature into real budget line items later if they're successful. Super Bowl, we did twice and we stopped.
We got like 10 minutes. What would you want to say before, if we hung up now and you're like, damn it, I wanted to tell that to Dave in the podcast?
I think something that is not talked about a lot is how to build a courageous team and how to motivate those people to do their best work. Because we talked about so far about, well, how do you get that buy-in from above? How do you get the CEO to get it and the CRO to get it? But many times you hire a team and they're just doing mediocre best practice work and not being edgy. So how do you do that? Do you think that's interesting?
Absolutely, I do. Yes, how do you do that?
So let's talk about it. So to actually uncover how to do this, I talked to half a dozen of my team members throughout the years of Gong, folks like Russell Banzon, Sheena Badani, Devin Reed, Chris Orlob, Vince Chan. I'm sure you've talked and seen all these names. They made Gong's marketing how amazing it was. It was not all Udi's work. Devin created things I could never do, and Russell did things, and Sheena did things. And Sheena created our category, revenue intelligence, for God's sake. I couldn't do that by myself. And I talked to them, and as I was interviewing them and asking them, like, what motivated you to do these experimental things and do crazy things? So there's a few things that emerged. And for us managing teams, I would say the top line, and then I can go into some details, is you need to create a situation where your team members have the psychological safety to experiment, to do trials and errors, and understand that they're not going to get fired for everything that goes wrong. They're actually going to be asked to teach us the learnings from that and then move on to the next thing. And that's why we have an experiments budget. And you've got to create a culture that celebrates and supports. Go farther, be edgier. I heard this from Devin and from Chris when I interviewed them. They said, you and Amit, you kept pushing us like, that's not crazy enough. Go bigger. How could we 10x this? Don't talk to me about a 10% increment. Talk to me about a 10x increment. Go wild. Like there is no limit. And Amit still says this. He says, marketing budget is unlimited. Show me the ROI on what you're doing and you get more money. It is unlimited because why would he limit the budget of what's bringing in business? And if you have that mentality and you drive people to just do something big and crazy, they will start doing that. Now, on the other side, you do need to harness them in or rein them in. And you do that with what Adam Grant called in his book, Think Again, process accountability, which sounds boring, but it's not. The idea is that we do have goals. We do have a North Star. So we're not going to do random acts of marketing and do just random billboards all over the world. Like if we have an event that we need to support and we have an idea of, we can explain why in the best case scenario, this will help us, then let's go do it.
Well, it's like do crazy things in service of that goal, right? And so
Yes.
the goal is we have a pipeline goal. Hey, let's come up with crazy ideas. And I do love that. I mean, first of all, this only works at a culture where you have the CMO and you have the CEO saying like, I want you all to take more chances. And so I think I used to roll my eyes at that term, psychological safety, and now I understand it.
It's so true. Because if people don't have it, they won't do their best work for you.
Well, and then you just get a content machine that's, we got 3 blog posts a week and that's our content.
My husband's a physician and he said that for years now in the US, the medicine has been defensive medicine because doctors are so afraid of getting sued. That's the same thing that's happening with marketers. They're afraid of getting fired. So they're doing defensive marketing. They're doing the equivalent of buying an IBM in the 1980s.
Right.
What won't get me fired?
And that is like, go back and study any marketing ever. It's like all of the opportunity. You know what it is? It's like investing, right? It's like VCs, and it is that they might make 100 bets and 98% of those bets fail, but the 2 of them have 10x, 100x returns.
And they return the fund. Yes.
So do you have an example of like, is there something that returned the fund at Gong? I'm gonna riff on one thing that I talk about that you guys did a lot was, I think in an era where like content marketing was like write 5 blog posts a week, have a newsletter. What I loved about what you guys did with Gong Labs was like, we're going to only publish one thing, but it's going to be super data driven, original research, fact based, data shared everywhere. And it's like, we might only publish
and immediately applicable. Everyone reading it can do what it says and be better for it today. That's the important thing.
So like, that's a good example of like taking a big swing. And it's like, yeah, just because everyone else is blogging for SEO, let's not do that. Let's write 2 pillar pieces of content a quarter, and those pillar pieces are going to have the like 10x returns.
That is our fund return. And Gong Labs is still going strong 9 years after we started it. It's crazy, right? What content series has kept up? There's not many podcasts or YouTube series or anything that's gone for 9 years. Gong Labs has been going strong for 9 years while we've tried and a bunch of other stuff that didn't do as well. Gong Labs just it's a gift that keeps on giving, because we're giving people something that makes them instantly better. Here, I'll give you 2 examples that you might have heard from me before. But one, if you open a cold call by asking, how have you been? You'll keep people longer on the line than if you ask, how are you? Or is this a bad time to call you? So how have you been makes you sound vaguely familiar, and people give you more time as they go through their head trying to think, oh, have I spoken to this guy before? Like, he sounds familiar. So that works. Now you can use that. I took 10 seconds to teach you something new, and that's a typical Gong Labs content. The other one, of course, that we became very famous for a couple of years ago was when we found that salespeople who swear on their sales calls tactfully increase their win rates by 8%. What does tactfully mean? It means the best way of using that is as a mirroring technique. If you've read Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference, he talks about different mirroring techniques. Well, here's a manifestation of one of them. If your buyer signals that they like that colorful vocabulary by using it first, you should absolutely respond using the same vocabulary. You just build more trust and rapport, and you just increased your win rates on average by 8%. Who doesn't want to do that? That was a 30-second snippet that anyone can use that. And the best part is you don't have to buy my product to use that. I'm giving you value that is independent from using my product. That's what great content does.
And I think what's great about your example is I think that recently I've been on this kind of tirade of like, we spend so much time in marketing talking about marketing and sales alignment. I don't think enough people talk about marketing and product alignment. Like that is fundamentally like you need to have a product roadmap. You need to have a product vision. That is whatever the relationship with the sales team is, whatever, we can work on that. Show me an awesome product, an awesome roadmap, a product leader with vision. That's the person that I want to pair up with from a marketing
100%.
standpoint. And none of this, all the Gong stuff you're talking about is product related stuff. It's being able to get that data, right? It's not like we made up this marketing campaign. It seems like it's such a crucial part of your success there.
It is. And I think this is a good place as any to give huge kudos to Gong's product and engineering teams, because for all my marketing talent, I could not have succeeded at a company that did not make an absolutely awesome product. So that is the biggest career hack. Find a company that makes a truly awesome product. And there's ways to look for that I talk about in the book. We won't get into them now. But the second thing, like you said, is we provided exclusive content that folks could not get anywhere else. And we used our product to create that content. So that is the best combo of all. And I've done that before at other companies. It's not unique to Gong. You know who's doing that amazingly today? Carta. Carta are using their product to produce Walker's content, which is mind-blowing. I love his content. He provides so much great content for founders and investors and employees. And on the way, he's very subtly promoting their own product. So you want to use it because you're like, if I can get this content for free, imagine what I could be getting by using their product. So that's how you go use it. If you can't get that exclusive content, you can always survey people, and that's kind of secondary data. And if you can't do that, then you can always revert to thought leadership. But at the end of the day, without data, your content is just another opinion. So if you can bring data to the table, and especially if it's exclusive and related to your product, that's how you create the best content marketing.
Before we wrap up, we can plug the book. Where do you think the future of marketing is going with AI? And as it relates to this idea of courageous marketing, is AI going to allow you to do more courageous marketing? Is our inboxes just going to be filled with a bunch of shit because of AI? And maybe there's more opportunity. I'm sure you have a philosophy on, the future. It's a very exciting time. I don't mean to poo-poo on anything. I think it's a very exciting time to do marketing. It's given me a lot of energy recently, but I'm curious as it relates to this topic of courageous marketing, where do you see the role of AI?
I think courageous marketing is not going away. If anything, it'll be needed more than ever. I think what we're seeing, and if you look at our friends in coding and engineering, they're a couple of steps ahead of us in using AI, as far as I can tell. And what I've seen there is that they need a lot fewer junior people who used to do very mundane tasks, because those are the first ones that AI is replacing. And so I think in that dance of figuring out where we use human intelligence, where we use artificial intelligence is first coming in and doing the entry-level work. So as an entry-level marketer, the bar is so much higher now. You actually have to do what used to be called, mid-career marketing to get an entry-level job now, because AI can do the super simple stuff. And that's going to leave us more time to do courageous strategizing and coming up with the best ideas for our brand and for our content and for our events. And I think we're going to be doing a lot of more interesting work rather than resizing ads and summarizing or expanding articles for different content formats, because that's what AI can do for us already today. And it's going to be able to do more and more of that, potentially help us with ideation. Although right now, most of the ideas that we get are, again, these kind of average of the best practices that everyone else is doing. So the best hack for using that in marketing, I think I saw Kyle Lacey write about that, the CMO at Jellyfish. He said, when we go into brainstorming meeting and we want original ideas, we first ask ChatGPT, what are the top 10 ideas for this project? And then we take all of those off the table because those are the most obvious ideas that everyone's already doing. So we're not going to consider them. And now starts the real ideation. So I think that's a creative use of understanding the limitations of AI, what it can do today and what maybe it will help us do tomorrow.
I dig it. Nice. All right. Your book is out now.
My book is out
when
now.
This episode is out, your book is out now. What do you want people to do?
Well, go to Amazon or wherever you buy your books and look for Courageous Marketing. There's only one book for now titled Courageous Marketing, and I would love to hear your take on it. And I'm the only Udi Ledergor on LinkedIn. So if you connect with me there, you can tell me what you hated about the book. Hopefully you loved at least one thing. And I'm happy to connect with everyone there.
No, the book is great. I appreciate what you did with the book. And I think what you'll get from the book is like as tactical and specific as Udi was on this podcast. If you want those specific examples, screenshots, I think it's a book that you will dog ear and highlight and mark up. It's easy to write a fluffy marketing book, and this is not one of those. And so definitely go and check it out. Maybe it was a year ago almost. I think I spent about an hour and a half. Udi interviewed me. I know the level of work you put into this book. Who else that people would know did you interview for the book?
So amazing CMOs like Carrie Lou Dietrich, who took Atlassian public, Trisha Gilman, who's now at Box, Michelle Tate from MailChimp, Andrew Davis from Paddle, a whole bunch of Russell Banzon, who's now CMO at Cresta. And I think that the most heartwarming endorsements that I got after the book was already written and went out for endorsements, folks like Daniel Pinks are on the cover. Robert Cialdini, who we all know from Influence, is on the cover. Like, these people read the book and said, this is good. Like, people should read this. So if you don't trust me and Dave, but you do trust Cialdini or Daniel Pink or Nir Eyal or Neil Patel, all those folks are endorsing the book and are on it. And we'd love to get more takes on it.
Love it. All right, Udi, great job. Good luck with the book. We'll see you out there.
Thanks for having me, Dave. It's always a pleasure.
Hey, thanks for listening to this podcast. If you like this episode, you know what? I'm not even going to ask you to subscribe and leave a review because I don't really care about that. I have something better for you. So We've built the #1 private community for B2B marketers at Exit 5, and you can go and check that out. Instead of leaving a rating or review, go check it out right now on our website, exit5.com. Our mission at Exit 5 is to help you grow your career in B2B marketing, and there's no better place to do that than with us at Exit 5. There's nearly 5,000 members now in our community. People are in there posting every day, asking questions about things like marketing planning, ideas, inspiration, asking questions and getting feedback from your peers, building your own network of marketers who are doing the same thing you are so you can have a peer group. Or maybe just venting about your boss when you need to get in there and get something off your chest. It's 100% free to join for 7 days, so you can go and check it out risk-free. And then there's a small annual fee to pay if you want to become a member for the year. Go check it out, learn more, exit5.com, and I will see you over there in the community. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Customer.io. Remember when a personalized message in marketing meant just putting someone's first name into the email and that was magic? Hello, David. Or hello, Gerhardt, or whatever fake name I put into the form. Well, those days are long gone. AI has raised the bar for lifecycle marketing because now you can deliver smarter, context-aware communication that actually feels personal, and you can do it at scale without hiring 5 more people. Today, personalization doesn't just mean using my name, it means actually having the right context. But there's a problem because even though this sounds great in theory, most teams can't actually do it because they're stuck with broken reporting, siloed data, and outdated tech stacks. It's often easier to just keep doing things the way that we've always done them. So our friends at Customer.io recently surveyed 600 marketers like you and me to figure out what's working and what's broken in lifecycle marketing right now and how the best teams are actually solving these problems. The report breaks down 2026 priorities, where budgets are moving, and how to tame the measurement mess that we're going through, real-world examples from brands like Notion and Monarch Money that are using AI personalization experiments, and understanding the next chapter of AI, what's on marketers' wish lists, and how customer journeys can get smarter, not just faster. So this guide is packed with examples, data, and strategy that you can put to work right now. If you want to get smarter about lifecycle marketing, this is a great free resource. So where are my email marketers at, my lifecycle marketers listening to this? Go and grab it right now, customer.io/exit5, and you can grab this and learn how to build lifecycle marketing that keeps up with today's expectations. That's customer.io/exit5.